Hey everyone, J-Rob Plays here, and Helhest is here, but surprisingly, as mentioned in my last video, we also have a new unit to cover. So in this video, I'll be going over Helhest and also a brief review of Rossi-11. But starting with Helhest, again, the abilities that we had, as far as the information provided, is not always going to be perfect whenever the releases happen. And so in this case, there's going to be some changes that I want to cover to make sure that everybody is up to date on what Helhest actually has. Because again, there was some information that Helhest was going to have movement abilities, and I think because of the Ning Fei superiority, they tuned her back a little bit, so that's kind of a downside, but she still seems pretty fun overall. As far as her passive, what's actually going to come is the data conversion. So in this case, when boosting or healing drones, heal allies, they also get the assisted calculation effect for 20 seconds, and Helhest herself will always have the assisted calculation effect. And then independent of that, it says while there are combatants inflicted with Helhest's own data analysis present, the encrypted network automatically generates one data fragment. Now this is going to be because I have her talent tree, and I'll go over that in a moment. Now, one thing that is in the video of the preview that we had was that she had a shielding drone. In this case, there's no shielding drone. Also, there was supposed to be like a strand grapple, and that is currently not in the game as well. I'm not sure if that's going to be added at a later time, or if that's something that is going to be part of her kit, as like whenever we do upgrades or something. I'm not sure how they're going to fix that, or I guess kind of make that right, in the sense that she was supposed to have these really cool movement abilities, but they tuned it down. But this is where we are. So for rapid deployment, she's going to deploy a drone in front of herself. You hold the ability button and you can pick where you want to deploy the drone. This is going to be important because the drones, to me, from my experience, were not really good when it comes to getting around walls and things. They don't really follow you as aggressively as I believe they should. Sometimes they get stuck or get lost, so that's one thing you have to make sure positionally. You're going to want to resummon them or move them around certain areas if you're doing a lot of platforming, or if you're fighting a boss and you're kind of kiting them around pillars. Your drones are going to struggle a little bit in that situation. Now, the next thing you're going to look at is the two types of drones. Of course, like we said, we have the boost drone, which is going to give you the damage boost, and then you have the healing drone, and that's going to be healing you over time. And this is going to work very similar to like an overtime heal that you get from a Talon. So you can use Ring of Conversion, for example, or something like that. Now, with her other ability that replaced the grapple ability, it also replaces the dash ability that we thought we were going to be getting. That's going to show Helhest activating a prosthetic to fire a volley at the reticles position, and you gain the salvo effect. What that's going to do is that's going to allow you to fire like a long-range kind of a attack that drops in missiles from the ceiling, and then from there you're going to end up getting the kind of same ring around them that you get whenever you would punch them, but in this case, when you shoot them, it doesn't detonate in the same way or launch them in the same way, but it does do additional damage when you do hit them with additional like lightning strikes and stuff, and that's going to be something that you'll see in her trial. Now, for the relic traits, you're looking at short frequency activation. That's going to be when you deploy or upgrade a drone, you're going to get a damage or healing potency bonus, boosting the drone by 200% for 4 seconds. If you do this over and over again, it's going to extend the duration, so it's kind of like a balance thing. And with her, she's a lot more involved than Estella is, for example. You're going to be definitely balancing a lot of her abilities, and she's a lot more work to keep things going and rolling. But people may like that because they may find it boring with Estella's playstyle, that you just kind of throw your little buddy out there and they do its thing. In this case, there's a lot more control, but also a lot more attention you have to pay towards the buffs and everything on the field. Now, the next relic trait is going to be the breakneck collaborator. So allies, including Helhest, gain 40% movement speed while within range of a boosting or healing drone. This effect lasts for 8 seconds. This is going to be good for speedrunning teams using Helhest to get through some of the calamity ops, for example. As far as for relic 3 trait for highlights, this states releasing the super drone upgrades the boosting and healing drone to max level, and it refreshes their duration. So you want to make sure you get your drones out first before summoning your major drone, because once you summon your super drone, that's going to give them that additional boost. If you do boost beforehand, they're going to be wasted because they're going to be overridden. And then for her weapon mastery, the overclock shot, and I think this is some kind of a trade-off with her movement ability to make her more damage oriented, because the overclock shot is nice. So what it reads is here, shortens your draw time on your bow and your linear fusion rifle charge time, and shots that hit combatants, they also do an extra 50% arc damage. Additionally, when it's active, it grants a weak spot lock on in a small range, so for bows it makes it easier to hit your headshots, and it doesn't take effect against light bearers per se. We'll have to try it out, maybe it might. Who knows if it's a bug, but for right now it's not supposed to. And then of course you get additional damage as you increase this, and then once you get to level 4, it's going to say that she also gets another effect on overclock shot. Whenever she does linear fusion rifle shots, it's going to reload 1 round from reserve, so it's going to really let you pump out the damage. It does kind of like suck when it comes to her best roll, because her best roll to me is going to be the searing mark, which as the magazine gets lower, you get that big final shot in the end, so it's going to give you a longer sustain, but it's going to get you to where your steering mark is lower. So you'll probably have to look at a different role for something like that. You're probably going to run something like firing line and black body to really take advantage of that for her. But again, we don't know what that's going to look like with the steering mark. What happens if you get to the final round and that steering mark does 2 300% shots in the final round? So who knows what the Magnum's going to look like, but it's a short window, or it gets you to the steering round faster. So I don't know, it might still work out in the end. However, going back to her kit, she does have the Trinity Ghoul like I suspected, so that's one thing that I was correct on. The Trinity Ghoul is the Battle Pass weapon, so you can get those either through the Battle Pass itself, or you can get those through the black market. So if you're going to be using that, you're going to want to save up your black market coins, because you're going to be getting your 50,000 coins up to get 10 of these. And you're going to have to do that twice. So if you go into the store and you're going to go to the exchange, you're going to go to the Battle Pass section. When you come down here to the Trinity Ghoul, to the Rarities Trove, you'll see that the Trinity Ghoul has a 60 purchasable one and a 40. I've already grabbed the 40 because I had some tokens, but in this case you're going to be looking at saving up 6 times. So that's a lot of black market coins, so make sure you save your coins. What we did find, and people were worried about the Furies not being available when it comes to the Estella Battle Pass that we had before. Furies is still available, it's just no longer discounted to 40. You're going to have to pay 60. If you haven't bought that first 41, you're going to miss out and have to pay the 60 twice instead of the 40 and the 60. So that's one downside from there. Under the Rarities Trove, you do get the ability to purchase like a Trinity Ghoul Catalyst for 30 of these. We're going to be able to get obviously some weapon cores to help with the Trinity Ghoul. To help level them up, you're going to get the Ascension Shards here. And these tokens, they expire, so you might as well just spend them. So go through, make sure you're spending all your tokens. All of these are going to go away after a certain period of time. Alright, so now going into her abilities, we're going to go through her mechanic tutorial. It starts out by showing that she does the boosting and healing drones, and the way that they work is you're going to have 2 stacked on top of each other. The way that we initially thought it was going to work is you would hit a button to switch between the 3 drones, but it's actually giving you 2 buttons. So as you see on the screen, I have V as in Victor and Z as in Zebra, and if I hit V, it's going to give me the boost drone. If I hit Z, it's going to give me the healing drone. So that was a little bit confusing for me trying to figure out how to get the healing drone out, because I was holding down the boost drone button, but the boost drone was just letting me drop it. So it's a little bit of a learning curve there. Once you kind of get used to that, hitting 2 different buttons, 2 different drone locations, kind of 2 different areas in which you're going to be pushing to hit the drones, it's easy then to separate them out and to know which one you're upgraded. So when you hit your boosting drone button, if you hit your boosting drone button again with the charge, you're going to then upgrade that drone. If you hit the boosting and the healing, you're going to have to then pick a charge for that 3rd charge if you have the talent tree to get her into the next section. Now, the other ability that we talked about was going to be for her to give heavy ammo for her teammates, and that's still carried over into the game, which is awesome. So as you're doing damage to teammates and as your drones do damage, you're going to gain data fragments. These data fragments are automatically going to come to you. You don't necessarily always have to run over to them. Sometimes they'll remain on the field. Once you've collected enough, you'll see that you get to that halfway bar on the bottom there, and that's going to allow you to run up and interact with your drone, and that's going to have you generate ammo. Now, I'm not sure how it is on the ally side, if they also have to run up to your drone and grab it. We'll have to see once I have allies how they interact with my drones, or once we can see kind of somebody who's got a partner to test them with. Basically, the drone should be there for you to interact with it. You just run up to it, hit your interact key, boom, you get a full brick of ammo, which is great. And it doesn't seem to be like a reduced brick. You got a decent amount of ammo from the brick. It's not like a finder brick on Destiny 2, so I was worried you were just going to get like 1 shot or something really weak, but that's actually pretty decent, and it's actually got a pretty good sustain. So I don't know if they're going to make it to where she doesn't get as many heavy ammo drops, because she's going to get heavy ammo from her drones, but we'll see how that works. However, if you're running Trinity Ghoul, you're going to be using Trinity Ghoul a lot for ad clear, and you're really only going to be busting out your heavy for the bigger enemies. So you're pretty much going to always have heavy as long as you're kind of going through that loop. Now here in the tutorial, as you see me running through, you'll see that the ability to do the salvo is very strong. Even 1 drone out with the salvo can do quite a bit. And as the drone kind of has that stack up attack, you're going to see that it's going to release like a little bit of an AoE charge. And then of course the Trinity Ghoul itself is going to have the AoE as well. Now, I don't have the Trinity Ghoul in this particular activity because it's going to give you the base level weapons that she kind of comes with to practice with. But with the Trinity Ghoul, it gets even more crazy. One thing to mention too, and you'll see that later on as I weave in some additional chaos videos. As I was running through chaos because I was trying to get fruit so that I could upgrade her gilding for her artifact, you'll see that the screen is probably going to stutter in the recording too, because it was actually stuttering on the emulator. So having all the drones out, having 2 drones, having the salvo going, and having the Trinity Ghoul AoE effects all kind of happening at the same time, it's like really going to tax people's devices. And even if you're on the computer with the emulator that still needs higher GPU compute to make up the difference, because the emulator is not exactly clean like a client would be, you're still going to have some people that are going to need to lower their FPS when they're running with a Helhest or multiple Helhests, because all of those abilities going off at the same time combined with the abilities of the other characters going off at the same time is probably going to make some devices chug pretty hard. And now it could also just be that the patch introduced some type of a performance issue. It could be something to do with that iPhone patch where you were supposed to get higher FPS, affecting all of the devices in general. But I do just want to go over real quickly her talent tree before we go into some of the additional things that I have as far as feedback and first impressions, and then we'll go into Rossi, and I'll go over a little bit of Rossi's kit. And then from there, later on today, once I get done running with Helhest, I'll run a bit with Rossi and see how Rossi behaves and give you kind of a proper first impressions there. But at least I want to cover Rossi since she was a surprise and people are also going to be interested. And I find her kit pretty interesting as well. She's kind of an arc finale to me, but in a different way, and kind of mixed with a little bit of Kabir. Between her and Kabir's defense characters, she might be a superior character, but we'll have to see. Now, as far as the talent tree goes, the first node you're going to see is you get the additional charge of rapid deployment like I mentioned, and when charges are at the max, she'll deploy a boosting drone or healing drone, and the drone will be directly updated to its maximum. Now, when there's combatants afflicted with Helhest's own data analysis present, the encrypted network automatically generates 1 data fragment every 15 seconds. That's the one that you saw that I had active in her mastery. For her third node, it's going to be the overclock shot, getting an additional 20% damage, which is going to be very strong. Data fragment requirements to get a heavy ammo drop at 16, also very strong. And then the number of salvo stacks after granting is increased by 6. I don't know how important that one's going to be. The salvo seems okay, but I don't think it's going to be that useful unless it gives you like additional time on some of her uptime and whatever abilities. Again, we'll have to test that out. Now for T6, the boosting and healing drone's max level is increased to 3. Level 3 boosting and healing drone's effective radius is increased by 50%, very strong. Additionally, when firing weapons to direct level 3 boosting drone and healing drone fire volleys, they're going to deal additional instances of arc damage equal to 50% of the fired weapons damage, so very strong on boss damage when you're using linears. Alright, so as I've got some chaos footage and a little bit of footage of me running around doing the daily commissions with Trinity Ghoul, because I didn't really get a lot of good footage for chaos, because today's chaos modifiers are not really helpful for Trinity Ghoul, as it lowers your weapon damage by 50% by giving that ability damage increase. So I built her to where she got the comments from the summons, and then I built the summons to come really fast so I could always have a bunch of high level drones out there and just see how it is running around just summoning drones over and over again, and obviously getting your super drone back really fast because of that additional 300% increase in ability speed as far as getting your ability speed back. I also went with increased damage to see just how much damage the drones did when they had 50% increased damage, and the super drone actually does pretty good damage. It looks like it hits pretty hard. The little drones are okay. They're really going to have that cumulative effect when you're combining that with Trinity Ghoul for ad clear, and they're just chipping away at your target. The real major damage you're going to be doing is by speeding up your bow and speeding up your linear fusion when you're doing the summons. So as long as you're doing your summons and you're swapping to your heavy to get that initial boost of speed, or you're swapping to your bow and getting out a bunch of fast shots to kind of take advantage of that additional boost of speed, you got like a little ring that shows how long you have to take advantage of that speed boost kind of to the right of your aim. that's going to be how you handle, that balance. And you just kind of want to keep an eye on your summons in the bottom right hand corner. You'll see your summons, you'll see what levels they are, which is good. It's very clear. Tells you how far away you are from your summons. Once you get to a certain distance, it starts to kind of turn red. You get too far away and it's going to take those summons and it's going to unsummon them, and it's going to say it's been recalled. It's going to give you that power back, and then you can then summon them again. And so it's pretty interesting how it works. And like I said, a little disappointed that the drones don't follow you as aggressively as they should, in my opinion, and they can kind of get lost around pillars and things like that from where you originally dropped them, which is why you have that ability to drop them in certain places. I do like the heavy ammo, and the speed at which you get back the heavy ammo so far seems pretty strong to me. I didn't find myself running dry because I was also getting those data fragments and getting back the heavy ammo and running up to my drones and snagging it when I remembered to do so. But it's a lot to balance. So for somebody who's used to kind of just standing there and just kind of going head empty and just emptying your clip into an enemy, Helhest is not going to be necessarily super fun for that person, because they probably are going to get annoyed with having to balance where the drones are, where they are in their timer, what level they are, who are we going to prioritize, am I buffing my allies, all of those things you're going to want to kind of keep top of mind. And then you're also going to keep in mind the salvo, and when the salvo hits and you get your speed buff, you're going to want to remember, oh, let me take out my heavy, let me take advantage of that speed buff, that additional arc damage if you have her tiered up a little bit. And it can cook. I mean, I think she's going to be really strong. I don't know if she's going to be on the level of Estella when it comes to having stuff like, auto-loading holster, air parent, just being able to dump a whole clip in a short boss phase. But she'll be able to hold her own, in my opinion, and she's probably going to be much stronger than a tall when it comes to being able to hold her own. I know in a tall situation, you can build up a tall by getting your heal over time on allies or herself. If you do it allies in your super, if she's in her super, obviously it boosts that damage even further, but then you're stuck in your super and you can't use your linear. I think when I was mentioning earlier with the linear kind of being counteracted by the fact that you're getting shots back into the magazine, it may not be as bad as I think about it. You're going to be getting to the bottom of the magazine a lot faster. So you're going to be doing a lot of mag dumping at that point. I think once you get to that point and once you get that unlocked, you're going to find that having that additional heavy ammo, you're maybe going to actually start running out, but you're going to be putting out a lot more throughput. So we'll see again which becomes the better role when it comes to boss damage. If it really is going to be the one where you get more damage at the bottom of the magazine and that final shot has 300%, and if that final shot can proc twice because of the return of the one ammo from reserves. So again, that could be nice. And how you balance it and how you do it, whenever you proc your ability, you can hold off and make sure you're on the lower end of your magazine, and you may be able to empty your magazine, proc that ability, get that buff, and then do a bunch of shots in your magazine fast at that 300 until you run out of reserves. That could actually be a really nice way to cook. So we have a bunch of T6 Helhest running around just breaking things. It may take a little bit of time for us to see how broken she can be, and she has a lot of potential for her to be abused in a good way, for her to get ammo out there, for her to have a lot of damage in a short period of time, for her to take advantage of some of the effects, stack some of the effects. Having her T6 might be a huge difference than having just one copy of her or two copies of her. Having that one copy with that one additional drone might make all the world. So I think she's going to be one of those characters personally that if you don't have a bunch of her talent tree, that you're really not going to see or visualize her full potential. I like the fact that she has a lot going on, because if you get to a situation where you're kind of getting bored of one character that is just kind of unload your ammo and push a couple buttons and unload your ammo, and you want that additional benefit of having to balance things, and I always liken it to other games. I don't know if anybody else has played World of Warcraft, but the Warlock had a lot of different builds that you could use to focus on how you wanted to play the character. And there was a demo destruction build where you really just spammed your buttons, and as long as you had your abilities up and you spammed them in the correct order, you did a ton of damage. And it was a very simple but very strong and powerful build, and it did a lot of damage. But then you also had the Affliction Warlock, which required you to really pay attention to your buffs and debuffs, and really pay attention to the afflictions that you had on an enemy or a boss, because as long as you kept your curses up, and as long as you did them in a specific order at the right time, and you kept with that rhythm, you were doing a lot of damage. And at one point, they were like the highest damage. However, since they were so punishing, if you let something fall off, you happen to find that characters that were like the Demolition Warlock, that could just spam their button over and over and over again, switch to a different ability, spam that over and over again, and then when the boss was low health, spam a kind of 30% execute, as they called it, ability that did a bunch of damage in the boss's lower half. Then that caught up to the Affliction Warlock, who made one or two mistakes. However, if the Affliction Warlock was perfect, hard to catch up, because they have this big sustain and they did damage all the way through, and they also had a ability to ramp up their damage as the boss's health is getting lower. So it depends on that type of player. If you're the type of player that likes that challenge, keeping up your buffs and debuffs, likes being able to affect the field, work with your allies, kind of really take that ability to play the game to another level and kind of make it more cerebral, I think this will be an appealing character for those people, just because it gives you more to do, especially if you are ADD but you still have that ability to kind of like be that savant ADD where you're focused on one thing and you're really good at that one thing. That might be something appealing to somebody who has that type of mentality, or just that characteristic where they really like getting deep into something to the point where they master it and they feel accomplished because they're able to kind of beat the game, in the sense that they've gotten a rotation, a damage rotation in, and done so in a way that it's hard for everybody to do. So it gives you that personal sense of achievement that you're able to master a character like this. It's got a lot of moving parts. It's easy to let something fall off, and then that really hurts your sustain. And so that's going to be my initial first impression of Helhest, and I think who she's for, the kind of person who she's for. I don't know how viable she's going to be when it comes to speedrunning, just because of the fact that her summons are going to fall off in some of the speedrunning sections when you're trying to get through areas that have long traversals. She may not be able to keep up like she would have had she had the dash that we thought she had, and had she had the grapple that we thought she had. If she had the dash and the grapple, she was going to be absolutely sick. But because she doesn't have the dash and the grapple, she's going to be more in line with an encounter, I think, where she can kind of stand in a certain area and go from one area to another area while still controlling the battlefield and having a lot of ad clear. I think that's where she's really going to shine. And then, of course, if you have situations like in Asaka's Tabernacle, where you can just kind of stand in one spot and deliver when it comes to damage, and she's allowed to get up all of her summons and get everything maxed out before boss damage, and has like that limited time to just dump linear with that additional speed, that 50% speed, plus the additional arc damage, plus the lightning strikes, all of that combined. I think she can actually put out a lot of damage in a confined set of time in a damage phase like that. So hopefully that's how it turns out. Hopefully these changes that they made to her don't really dampen people's desires to play her, because I know I was excited back when I thought that she was going to have the strand grapple ability, and she was going to be able to dash and then grapple between her drones, so you could throw a drone out in front of you, grapple, dash. She was going to have a lot of that movement tech, and they kind of killed all that by removing that. And again, probably because of Ningfei and the abuse of Ningfei and Calamity Ops when it comes to out of bounds, when it comes to abusing his ability with macros to get him to go farther, so you can traverse longer sections. Like in the Foundry, for example, you can just get right past all of the moving platforms and go right into the final platform. Saved a lot of time. And that was a lot of the difference between some of the Overseer runs and some of the people who were stuck in the prior tier. And because it's a gacha game, they can't really nerf Ningfei per se, but what they can do is they can prevent future units from becoming additional Ningfeis or Ningfei on steroids, which I think the Strand Grapple and the additional dash was seen as that. So they adjusted things. They've turned her salvo into what was going to be her dash, and instead of having the shield drone, I guess that was also going to make her too powerful, they just have the healing and the boost drone, but they gave you more uptime on those drones, and they gave you that additional rate of fire and everything to kind of be more of a damage in a short period of time, like a burst damage character. And again, I hope that doesn't turn people off, but it is what it is. So from there, let's move on to Rossi-11 and talk a little bit about Rossi-11 and her abilities, wrap up the video, and then from there I'm going to get back to work and do a little bit more exploring and see how she actually plays in other activities. Alright, so unexpected character Rossi-11. We've got an EXO in Regal clothing like we mentioned. looks pretty decent. Looks pretty cool. Kind of has a little Mandalorian look with this little ability on the back here, kind of the generator of the electricity. And then of course on the kit, we've got the bow, and then we have the Muhammad Yuri, so already going to be strong when it comes to damage. So Rossi's already on a good start when it comes to their kit. Now, in order to get the bow, the Yoshimoto, I almost made the mistake, and I want to make sure you guys don't make the mistake. I'm going to make a separate video going over this as well, so that people who kind of like too long didn't watch will still have that ability to get this. I went into the inventory when I first got in here, and I went to synthesize, and I synthesized all of my weapon parts, all my weapon parameters, trying to go get the bow. Then I went over to Bazinet, and I realized you can't get that until you acquire the bow already. So I was like, well, dang, what am I going to do now? I went and deleted a bunch of level 80 stuff that I had sitting so that I could use it for synthesis, and I came back over to the random one here, and you can do the mythic weapon random engram, and it'll give you the Yoshimoto right away if you have all the other items. So that's how I got it there. Now, if for whatever reason you're stuck and you can't do that, you can also go into the events tab, you can go into the Wheel of Fortune and just knock out some bounties, or knock out some high value bounties. You can do strikes. Any of these are repeatable quests, so you can get these lucky pointers. And as you do a couple of pulls, you're going to for sure get these New Light Mythic Choice Engram. I feel like it's weighted because it was like one of the first few ones that I got. And then from there, it'll let you pick the Yoshimoto. And then you can go back to Bazinet, and then you can go back into your inventory and you can start dumping your Mythic Weapon Engrams to get this bow. Now, as far as on the rolls on the bow, it's got some pretty good rolls. So I just want to go over some of the combinations there. So you're looking at Archer's Tempo. It's going to give you reduced draw time per precision hit. Still have Black Body, which is good. That's going to be good for overall damage. Emboldening Support, that's going to give you more damage as your power weapon depletes. Not sure how great that's going to be. I always like to keep my weapons topped up. Some people may be able to take advantage of this. Shiver, that one's going to be all right. That one's kind of like your Rampage type perk. I like the Sustain perks Black Body over that better. Annihilation is going to be interesting because, again, the way that it's working right now, you're getting stacks higher up than what it is. And if they fix it, then it may be less effective, but right now it's pretty good. And Ensuring Yields is a standout to me because it's saying that final blows grant the next magazine 60% damage after reloading. And if no final blows are made in the previous magazine, then you get 35% damage, meaning that with a bow, you knock an arrow every time. So every time you don't get a kill, you're getting a 35% damage increase. And when you do get a kill, you get a 60%. So I think Ensuring Yields is going to be strong, tied to Archer's Tempo, because you're going to be getting that additional 40% from the precision hit, or Annihilation and Ensuring Yields are going to be strong as well. So those are the things that I would go with a Black Body is kind of a close second. Now, as far as her relic abilities, she's going to have some pretty cool setup. Rossi-11 is going to throw an orb forward, and it's going to suck everything in like Fanala does with her ability. And then from there, you can either damage them through the shield, so you can shoot through the shield. Enemies can't shoot you through the shield, so you can step in there and use that as some defense to save you a little bit of health when you're doing higher end activities. I don't know how quickly the shield pops. We're going to have to see that on like the higher end stuff. Are they going to nuke your shield real fast and make it useless? We'll see. But for right now, it looks pretty cool. And then you also have the ability to launch an arc thread, dealing damage to combatants and hits. And it's a little tighter spread than what you see here. It looks like the spread's pretty wide, but for me it was a little bit tighter than that when I was using it in the tutorial. Another cool thing is as you upgrade it, it's going to penetrate through targets. So not only are you going to hit the targets in front of you, but the targets behind in the full length of the attack. And it also starts to get stronger and deal a little bit like an AoE later on. And so it's going to be a nice combination. And then when you combo that with stuff, it's going to have an additional ability later on. And you'll see that as we kind of go through some of the additional abilities in Talent Tree. Now for the super looks really cool. That one you're going to summon a giant wall, and then when you summon that wall, you can send that wall flying forward, and sending that flying forward is going to do a bunch of damage to enemies in a group in front of you. So it's going to be great for defense, and then when it's about to run out, you can then use it for offense, or you can use it right away for offense if you're in a situation where you're trying to ad clear a whole room. And it's going to be really useful in something like Calamity Ops, because you're going to run into situations where you have a bunch of enemies you need to kill right before the timer changes over. Then you can summon your wall and then send it out and get those nuked. Hopefully it does a bunch of damage to the point where you'll kill red bars right away, and then if it's like an orange bar, it'll do most of their health, and you can clean that up and get that additional boost of score right before the timer kicks over. Now for her additional abilities, Pulling Strings is what we talked about, where the thread of flow can overpenetrate combatants. And then the ion accumulator, when the gate takes damage, it's going to generate passive energy for Rossi-11's kind of bar that she has across. That effect has a 1-second cooldown, so it's going to get that bar going up, and you'll see that in the tutorial. And the final ability, I don't have that unlocked right now because I'm saving my clusters, but when you get 50% health as far as the unit, your Rossi's health, gaining an overshield will also heal you for 50% of the overshield's health, which is pretty cool. So you're going to get a heal with an overshield. Then, of course, if you're using conversion, that's going to give you even more of an overshield. So pretty nice. Again, I don't have any of the mastery because I'm saving these materials for Helhest, but what the mastery does is whenever Ionic Protection performs an energy conversion, it also grants Rossi's bow and auto crossbow a stack of weave, up to 3 stacks. When shots hit the target, they're going to consume 1 stack of weave and generate a lightning strike, similar to kind of a Trinity Ghoul lightning strike, just not as strong. You'll see that again in the tutorial, and it does a certain amount of damage in a 2-meter radius. It's going to increase the Ionic Cascade damage as you go up. When you get to level 4, the crossbow shots are going to trigger Ionic Protection, consuming energy to grant Overshield, and then converting it into Ionic Cascade, which is going to stack with this damage here, so could be really strong. And then you're going to get 100% damage increase at level 5 Mastery. Now for the passive, if any of Rossi's abilities hit targets, they're going to grant 1 point of energy up to a maximum of 9, and that's that bar across the bottom. It's converted into an overshield at a 1:77 ratio once every 2 seconds for 6 seconds, so you want to keep that bar max, so she's got consistent overshield going. So again, as a defense character, seems pretty good. Now for the talent tree, and the way the talent tree is going to work, when you get the first talent tree orb, the thread flow that passes through an arc cage is going to activate the arc cage to trigger an arc explosion. So that's the combo that I was talking about. You're going to cage your enemies, and then you're going to hit them with a thread flow. It's going to over penetrate and hit them and anything past that. Then it's going to create a big boost, and it's going to pop everything. So it's a nice little way to kind of have that 1-2 wombo combo with Rossi. Now for the second talent tree node, when you cast thread flow, it's going to grant allies within a 10-meter radius overshield equal to half of Rossi's overshield. So that seems pretty strong. It lasts for 6 seconds as well. Pulsing current, that's going to give the health of the overshield provided by the protection 100%. Also pretty strong. The photoelectric gate is going to increase movement speed and damage, so that's your super. That's also really strong. So far none of these are wasted talents. The arc cage's health is going to increase by 100%. Seems pretty strong as well. Remember we talked about Calamity Ops being a thing where when you're in higher powers, the arc cage is going to get melted. This is going to help stop that. And then when the arc cage or the gate is present, the number of threads launched is going to be increased. Maybe that's why in the ability trailer it seemed like it was hitting more targets than what you're actually going to see when you're using Rossi in the tutorial, in the intro tutorial. So when it increases to 6, I imagine it's probably going to also increase the kind of shotgun spread of it. So I think that once you get Rossi to tier 6, Rossi's going to be a pretty strong defensive unit. Again, much stronger than Kabir, it seems, when it comes to the alternative arc unit. And I can't wait to get some more of these nodes as we get more Lumia leaves and everything, and get Rossi to 6. Rossi seems like it's going to be an awesome unit to play. So for Rossi's tutorial, it's going to start out showing you how to do the arc cage. Again, once you cast the arc cage, you're going to press and hold it so that you can lay the arc cage where you're going to. It gives you that orb where it's going to suck everything in. You see that I missed the one drag, so it is a little bit finicky where the orb area is. It's not as wide as you think it is, so slightly smaller, so just keep that in mind. Then it's going to show you how to hit targets with thread flow. This is that ability again that she shoots out that can over penetrate targets once you have that talent to do so. And when you do that, it's going to also build up energy on the bar. This is that energy that we talked about that will convert 1:77 ratio for the shield. And as you can see, Rossi has a full shield right now. So Ross is going to be a character that their shield is going to be pretty much up all the time, and you're going to be like burning that shield. And also another thing about Rossi's kit that you'll see is that when you accumulate the energy, you're going to end up using that energy to do additional AoE damage from your shots. So even though you may want to use the Muhammad Yuri on Rossi, you're still going to have some of that Trinity Ghoul feel, because Rossi's still going to have that AoE burst from that buildup of the energy. And you'll see that in the second tutorial, in the advanced tutorial. Right now what you're seeing is they're getting that cage that you would get, that you would normally get from the punch ability. So here in the second part of the tutorial, you're going to see that you cast the thread flow. That's going to build you up energy. You have that little 3, the little dial that's reducing, showing you that it's going to run out eventually. Once you've built that up, then you can start firing the cascade, and after a certain amount of damage that you do, the cascade is going to go off. And so as you can see there, it's giving me like a little mini Trinity Ghoul explosion that does damage to the unit that I'm hitting, but also does damage to the unit next to it. And so I was pleased by how that looked. That's pretty cool. That's a nice little value add to being able to run exotic crossbow while still using the bow and still feeling like you have a little bit of AoE with that bow. And so you can see there, that's the over penetration. That shows how strong it is. Even when you're using like the regular auto crossbow that comes with it, when you combine that auto crossbow with that additional AoE arc blast, that kind of lightning blast that comes in, you're going to get a lot of damage in a short period of time. So when you do that and you build that up and then you bust out the Hamayuri and you're hitting them Hamayuri, all those 4 bolts, and you're triggering those arc explosions at the same time, that's going to be pretty strong, I believe, to help Rossi compete on a higher end when it comes to burning through big enemies. And so that's pretty much it. That's basically my coverage on Rossi for now, because again, I've spent most of my resources on Helhest to get Helhest up and to give her a decent early review, especially because she's a 5-star unit, and I've gotten some multiple copies to see how she behaves. And to me, again, the copies are going to make her pretty strong, I believe. Some people may doubt. Some people have already played her, I guess, from the beta. Again, I'm not a beta player. I only played for like the first Wolf mission in the beta, and I didn't pick it back up again. And I wasn't like officially working with Destiny Rising at the time, or NetEase at the time, as I am now. So I'll be getting more information and more clarification on those changes from the information that we saw as kind of her preview to the actual information that's coming in the game that you're going to see here. And I don't think I've ever quite seen such a stark change from something that has been promised, something that's been delivered. Again, I've only done Destiny coverage on the channel recently, but even in other games where you have expectations of having a character delivered one way to have them delivered completely differently because of the effect of a different character, we'll see how that goes over. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people crashing out right now who were expecting to have that really movement ability with her, and they're going to go in there and they're going to draw for her, and they're going to see, where's my strand grapple, where is my dash, where are those things? And me too, I was surprised, but as I played with her, I was still happy with how she's performing. And again, I still find that that's pretty cool how you have that balance of using her abilities and her uptimes as kind of like a mini game to kind of keep you entertained while you're still doing damage and using your guns all at the same time. So nice little bit of juggling there to keep that going. Some people may find it tiring, some people may be put off by that. So depending on who you are as a player, you're either ecstatic and you're satisfied, or you're just completely crashing out right now and you're like, why did I even draw for this? So sorry if that's the case for you, but if anybody else is excited like me, I look forward to seeing your comments and seeing any things you might have figured out, any additional kind of ability combinations, artifact combinations that have people coming out, how she's going to cook, a lot of these solo one-phase videos that are going to be coming out for Sakis Tabernacle and other things. But if you have any additional questions, you can go and drop them down in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.